Okay, what is up, guys? This is DDP with the Dallas Prospect back from my little vacation. In hindsight, the song choice, while kind of amusing, I realized probably not worth the payout I got from that at the end. So we'll see. We'll see if that's got some little copyright hit. We'll see. But worst case they can do is take away my ad revenue on this video, and I'm not even thinking about that right now. I got more stuff going on with the state of the Dallas Mavericks because apparently a guy goes on vacation and all hell has to break loose. You have Dennis Smith Jr. Reportedly, his relationship with the Mavericks has soured, reportedly. And as a result of that, there's now a lot of tension and a fierce movement for the Mavericks wanting to trade Dennis Smith Jr. This has now moved beyond the stage of guys like Jason McIntyre just throwing dung against the wall and hoping to get something out of the story because he didn't have any real pertinent information on it. And this is a more recent development because everything he claimed was saying, oh, Dennis Smith isn't liked by his teammates. Nothing has suggested that at all. They like playing with J.J. Barea better. Barea is a better leader and veteran in the locker room, but that's also irrelevant. Selfish, I think, was the word he used. Now, you could look at this and you could say, well, Dennis Smith Jr. is now holding out of these games. The Mavericks are saying he has a sore back, but we know what sore backs mean in Dallas. Look at Rajon Rondo's end of his tenure here in Dallas in the playoff series against the Houston Rockets. So, this is officially a huge story now, and of course, like I said, it breaks when I'm out of town. Not only am I out of town, I'm in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles away, in a remote cabin trying to decompress. I actually had a friend find my wife's, because I left my cell phone, so I had a friend call my wife's phone, because we had to have a phone on us, and he wanted to talk to me about it. And I was like, dude, you're going to have to wait until I get back. But let's get into the whole meat of the story. So obviously there's a lot of questions here. Who's to blame is the pertinent question. To me, that's a little bit of a loaded question because there's always going to be blame to go around on all sides here. As far as Dennis is concerned, the report from the Mavericks is that it's his advisors and his agent who are suggesting that he should sit out of these games right now and basically just try and force a trade. But here's the thing. Dallas's little triangle of power, of influence at the top of the organization, Carlisle, Cuban, and Donnie Nelson, 2/3 of them don't want him gone. It seems like if anyone wants him gone in that triangle, it's probably Carlisle. Now, for this, there is a lot of important stuff to consider. One, until very recently when he had no other choice, Carlisle has never liked young players, particularly rookies. Now, Luka is obviously different because Luka is clear, far and away the best player on the team. But when you would look in the past, Dennis Smith Jr. last year was the first time he really had no choice but to play a young player. In the past, rookies didn't get a lot of minutes under Carlisle, or young players in general, but especially rookies. So that's one thing that immediately was strained a little bit there, that he had to play Dennis, and as a young, we know, raw point guard. They knew that when they drafted him, that he was going to take time to develop and to kind of turn into something. And the fact is, the Mavericks were dragged kicking and screaming into an official rebuild 2 years ago because it became painfully apparent they were not going to be able to continue getting by, not that they ever really got by post-championship years, going about things the way they were, but they're dragged kicking and screaming into an official rebuild. They get Dennis Smith Jr., they again end up in the lottery, they wind up with Luka, they trade up to make sure they get Luka, in fact, and now they're like, okay, we don't want to rebuild, but we're still in a rebuild, but we're going to try for the playoffs, we don't want to have another lottery year. That's fine. That's what we're going to go for. That was the decision they made. But here's the thing. Dennis Smith Jr. last year averaged 15, I want to say 5 and 4. His field goal percentages weren't that high. He wasn't a very efficient player at all, but he was a young, raw player that was promised basically the keys to the kingdom. And that was understood. I mean, they were already setting him up to be like the face that they were going to rebuild around. Now, of course, they get Luka the next year. That changes the picture. But they still wanted to build around Luka and Dennis Smith. But the thing is, Luka came in so damn ready for the NBA. He was so good immediately that the Mavericks, who had only reluctantly finally caved into this notion of a rebuild, suddenly found themselves saying, ooh, maybe we don't have to do a painful rebuild here. You know, maybe we can just now throw a couple good veterans with Luka and immediately push ourselves back next year into the thick of the playoff race and build from that. I mean, we've already got potentially a generational player here in Luka Doncic. And suddenly, that changed the perception. So the patience they had for Dennis Smith Jr., the patience that my co-host Ennie and I have been talking about all year, really even throughout last year with Dennis Smith Jr., that's gone now. Now, part of that's on Rick, part of that's on the organization as a whole, because I don't think Dennis has been getting that same message and consistency from all sides on this as it relates to that Mavericks kind of triangle of power I mentioned. But Rick doesn't like playing young players. He's especially hard on point guards. If you look at his relationship with Jason Kidd, until the 2011 championship, Kidd and Carlisle didn't really get along very much. Now, they are really good friends. They'll go golf in the off season together, and they consider each other very close friends. But when Kidd was here initially, when he got back in 2008, and until they won that title, they clashed a lot. Now, that's an all-time great point guard in Rick Carlisle crashing. And it's a matter of control in this case. Carlisle, he's gotten better about this, but at the time, he wanted to basically kind of call the plays, decide who gets the ball, when and where, and all of that. He was just very hands-on with the offense, and he didn't like Kidd kind of being a coach on the floor. So there was a little bit of clashing there. They worked it out. They won a title together. We know that. But then you flash forward a little bit. Darren Collison, when he comes in, similar thing. Young point guard, and didn't work with Rick at all. Carlson's actually had a pretty decent career, not really as a starter since the Mavericks, but still has forged a pretty decent career for himself since leaving Dallas. So definitely you had something there that was at least worthy of exploring. Then you have the Rajon Rondo deal. That's another prima donna point guard who Rick very badly clashed with. I mean, they had like 30 games together, and the bridge was set ablaze in the middle of the first round playoff series after game 2 against the Houston Rockets. So that fell apart completely. There are more similarities there to Kidd and Rondo that I can detail later, but that's effectively where it was. And what I effectively look at here is, okay, so we have a coach who doesn't do great with young talent. Point guards he's tougher on in general. And you have a young point guard now, the double whammy, coming into the mix last year when they're finally reluctantly admitting that they're going to have to do a rebuild. And it's like, okay, well, we can be patient. Well, now Luka comes in and wipes away that plan of patience, because now they're not of the mind anymore that they're going to develop, a little bit more slowly. Now they're like, nope, we're going for it. So that immediately changed the picture for Dennis Smith Jr. again. Now, Smith Jr. this year, he's been very inconsistent. I've talked about that. But there has been growth, even though he's playing off the ball for the first time in his career. You could almost say it was like hitting reset for him in terms of his development, because now he's being asked to play so much off the ball as opposed to what he had done all through high school, through college, and through his rookie year, except for like the last 2 weeks of the season in the NBA. And he had done everything asked of him. If you look at his field goal percentages, they have been much better this year. I think his three-point percentage was something like 37%. Dude, he was like 30% last year, so a very, very respectable, and at one point it was as high as 39%. A very respectable bounce back in that regard for him. Last year he was a terrible defender, and he has shown flashes of being a very very solid defender now. This year, he's had stints where he makes the play at the end of the Oklahoma City win, where he D's up Paul George. Fantastic effort, helped secure that win for the for the Mavericks. You had then the game against earlier in the year. It was a game Luka missed against the Clippers. I think that's the game that Dennis Smith got a tooth knocked out. So for people saying he's selfish and he doesn't care about his team or anything like that, pipe down, dude. Dude, the guy got a tooth knocked out and played the rest of the game with a Mike Tyson-sized gap in his face, or a Michael Strahan if you want to go with football. So the dude likes his teammates. He's liked in the locker room. He likes the city. It's to a point now where I think his people that are talking to him are saying, this was supposed to be your ascension this year. Luka, I'm not saying Luka should be second fiddle necessarily to you, because that wouldn't make sense at all. But at the very least, I think their conversation is, this isn't really the two-headed faces of the franchise that we were kind of sold. And I think it's in his ears a little bit now, where it's maybe like his father, his agent, just general advisors around him. And as a result of that, it has strained that relationship. So he's missed a lot. He's had a lot of injuries this year. I think his ankle at one point, his right wrist, his shooting wrist was nicked up for a while. Now they're saying back soreness. Again, I don't think this is a valid injury. They claimed he had the flu. They're just trying to come up with excuses for why he's not there. I think his people got enough in his ear where he's now buying into the hype, where he's buying enough into the hype now where he's like, you know what, maybe it's not a basketball fit for me here. Because I guarantee he looks at his ceiling, and Any and I have talked about this. We think that Dennis has a ceiling of an all-star player. We think he is that caliber of a player. But he's going to take time to get there, and the Mavericks are now showing that they don't have that patience to wait for him to get here. Now, right now, if you look at him and Luka on the court together this year, it's indisputable. They're not a good fit together right now. But as Dennis continues in this development, by the time Dennis gets the last year of his rookie deal, which would be, 2020, I think, I guarantee you they will be a much better fit. And if you're Dallas, you have no leverage for trading him now, because people see how toxic this relationship has gotten, where the Mavericks were aggressively trading or trying to trade him, engaging in talks with Phoenix and Orlando over this past week while I was still out of town. And we had Woj tweets about it. We had, I think, Mark Stein chimed in on it as well. And it just got to a point where it looked inevitable. Now, it's dialed back since then because the talks have fallen apart with Phoenix and Orlando, because Dallas has no leverage. Everyone looks at the situation and they say, well, their relationship with him is clearly eroded. Why would I overpay to get him? Or why would I pay? Hey, what's up, Young? Salute, fam. From Hawaii, thank God Linehan is gone. Yeah, I'll be talking about the Linehan move for the Cowboys. If not today, then definitely tomorrow. Appreciate that, though. But I think you just look at the situation and it's like, all right, it's not set up like it is. If you look at 2020, the last year of Dennis Smith's rookie contract, I believe is what that is, I guarantee him and Luka will fit together very well. And it's because the areas in which Dennis needs to grow, you have to give him time to grow in those areas. And undersized score first point guards tend to take a little time to develop anyway. This is literally a year and a half into his career. It's too early to say whether or not he's bottoming out or anything like that. It's frustrating. But I totally understand Dennis and his camp being frustrated as well, because, yeah, you could say there's a little bit of maybe jealousy towards Luka, but it's not that they resent Luka. I think it's that they see how now Luka is the star in this situation, and how he, Dennis, despite doing everything asked of him, has fallen back. And I think to play with Rick, you're never going to be a star-studded point guard. You're not going to be allowed to do it. I think Rick keeps too much control. You can still play effective point guard for Rick, but he's going to want you to control the offense. He's going to want you to play good defense, and it's not near as much flash and flare as a lot of other guys do. I think I saw someone in the comments kind of talk about the idea that it's not really fun to play point guard for Rick. That's a very valid point, or at least something to explore, perhaps more so. But that's what I look at from that regard. I feel like this is a situation where there's so much talent and ability here, but Dallas, because of the changing landscape now for what they feel Luka has immediately changed their perspective to, I think now they're wrestling with this notion of, okay, we preached patience with Dennis, and that's not good enough. He's done everything we've asked of him, but he's unhappy because he's not being allowed to shine. He feels like he might be kind of feeling like he's being held back a little bit, which would, again, be a valid point. The ball is better in Luka's hands. I don't discourage that, or I don't doubt that or dispute that at all. But I still think that you can bring Dennis along to the point where Dennis can still start, but play in the starting unit, be secondary as far as touches are concerned with Luka. And then as soon as the second unit largely comes in, Dennis would run that unit, especially now with the Barea injury. I think that would make a lot of sense, and it would still allow Dennis to have an impact throughout the game. I don't know if that's been discussed or anything, but if not, that could very easily be contributing to that frustration too, where he's just like, dude, what more do you want from me? And Mavericks have no leverage as far as trading him. They refuse to take 50 cents on the dollar, so to speak, for anything they get in return for him. So I think what we're likely going to get at this point is Dallas trying to work this out and put a Band-Aid on this relationship, just at least to get us to the offseason. I'll be honest with you guys, though. I haven't even talked with any about this, so he might disagree with me in the comments here. I see him in there, Uzi. But I don't know that this relationship can be mended at this point. I really don't. I think this is very much so a bottoming out, and I don't think you can fix the relationship. I look at it kind of like Dallas has a history of this stuff too. I know the situations aren't identical, but if you look at the first Jason Kidd stint here when we drafted him, he was here 2.5 years before getting shipped to Phoenix. Now, he demanded a trade in that case. Dennis and his people have said, we have not demanded anything, but we're not going to argue with a trade if it's put out there. So Dallas is the one exploring the trade. I do think that while it can be said like, oh, we're not demanding a trade, but we are going to hold Dennis out. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're not demanding, but at the same time we're forcing, I think is how they've been trying to do it. I don't know what the solution is for Dallas. Again, I don't think this can really be mended or saved or salvaged. And the only thing that's in either of their interests is for Dennis to come back and just try and reclaim his value a little bit. To come back to the team, try and play his ass off. If Rick wants great defense, he's going to have to give it to him. But he's also going to have to be allowed some moments to, you know, throw down thunderous dunks on dudes to reclaim his value. And the Mavericks, it's in their best interest for that too. And this season is slipping away. Dallas has lost 3 straight games now. I think they're like 20-25. But there's 4 teams ahead of them. I think they're like 4 or 5 games from 8th place, and there's 4 teams between them because of how clumped up the bottom of the Western Conference is. And as a result, it looks very unlikely that over like the last 36 games or whatever it is, that they're going to be able to close that gap. The playoffs feel like they're slipping away this year. And if I'm Dallas, my mission becomes, okay, continue Luka's development and try to reclaim some of that value for Dennis Smith Jr. because there is still a very real potential. We're going to have to move him in this offseason. And if that's going to be the case, we need to reclaim as much of his value as we can before then. So let me take a couple comments here. Can't catch him. What's good? I love Jason Kidd so much. I was crushed when he demanded a trade back in '95, all because of Jim Jackson. Yeah, there's one of the few times I'm going to plug a video here. There's a SB Nation has on their YouTube channel a series they call Beef History, and they talk specifically about the Jason Kidd stint in Jackson and Mashburn and all that. And there's really interesting stuff there. You know, the salacious storyline was that it had to do with Toni Braxton and like both of them dating her and one of the guys going behind the other guy's back. That's all actually not true. That's just like the kind of myth that started, and because it helped get her name out there and, you know, helped bump her career up as far as PR is concerned, she just kind of didn't deny it and it just kind of stayed out there. But it's still a really interesting story, and it gives you a lot of good background between like various sports beefs and all of that, whether it's basketball, football, whatever. They got, for other Mavs fans out there interested, it's got LeBron versus Deshaun Stevenson, which is a great story because it ends with LeBron losing in 2011 to Stevenson and the Mavericks in the championship in the finals. So pretty sweet there, but we'll see. Barry Grogan, what's up? Mavericks have a problem trying to trade off young talent before they develop. Have a problem trying to trade young talent before they develop. Yeah, no, I agree. They absolutely move guys too much. They have a bad history of giving up entirely too soon on talented prospects, and it burns them. For a franchise that has drafted as abysmally as the Mavericks have in the Mark Cuban era, it's inexcusable for them to give up on Dennis Smith Jr. this fast. And I'm not even kidding you. When you look in the Mark Cuban era, so there was a study done on this where they basically took all of the draft picks across all of the teams in the league across that time, took the average number of games played by them, the total number of games played by those picks, all that, and then laid it out to tell you who got the most value out of drafts in that span. The Mavericks were dead last by about 67,422 and 3/4 miles from the next team up. Like, it is abysmal what they've done in the draft post Dirk. The one first round pick they had that they really tried to do something with. I mean, yeah, you can say Devin Harris was valuable to them. Josh Howard obviously was another very good one. They got an all-star season out of him, but that's really all they've gotten. They've gotten one all-star season out of a draft pick not named in the Cuban era. One all-star season that I can think of, because Devin Harris got his when he was traded away in the kid deal to New Jersey at the time. So, yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So there's no excuse for Dallas to do this. I'm frustrated because it's a history. The franchise has a history with this kind of crap, and it's inexcusable. It is. You can question maybe the basketball fit, and even then I would say it's still too early to make that declaration. If you're talking about how well Luka and Dennis play together, bro, it's year one, 45 games in, and you're talking about guys that have played together maybe 30 games total. It's stupid to definitively say what they can or can't do. And I understand the excitement that comes with Luka and how it changes perceptions to now the point where the Mavericks are like, you know what? I think we can go for it right now. We don't have to worry about a rebuild. We can try and jump right into this thing, get a couple veterans with Luka, and next year be relevant again. Like, legit relevant. Not just fighting for a playoff spot, but like, all right, let's aim for like a 5 seed or a 6 seed at least. Like, I get it. I do. But you got to understand how to manage things better. Do you guys remember that whole controversy? I talked about it in the offseason regarding the Mavs sales department and things like that, and the guys where you had Pants DJ, for instance, the guy that was looking at terabytes and terabytes of porn at work and jerking his gherkin, so to speak, at work in the Mavs front office. And it was a known thing. Like, people would just see him doing it, and HR reprimanded him, but it never really stopped him. Yeah, because he had high sales numbers, he was able to keep his job. My point in bringing this up again, this weird, gross story, is to say the fact that Pants DJ, his nickname in the office, will have a longer Mavericks career than Dennis Smith Jr. is infuriating. It is infuriating because it's like, bro, come on, man. Like, why? Just why? Oh, God. Pants DJ. That's a reference I didn't think I'd have to bring up again. DSJ could be going through a second season slump. His numbers are down, but his field goal percentages are up across the board. His defense is light years better than last year. He's flashed very high potential as a defender. His three-point percentage is somewhere around 37% last I checked. So there is value to him. That's what I keep saying. There's a lot to count on for him and what he can bring to the table. But you just got to give him time, man. If Dallas trades him, which I think at this point it seems about inevitable they're going to, okay, fine. If you're going to trade him, fine. But understand, I still hold to the point that he will reach his potential elsewhere. It might be a D'Angelo Russell kind of thing. When he left the Lakers and went to Brooklyn, now suddenly he seems like a really nice point guard out there. It could be that situation where he just takes a few years to develop, and then you'll be looking back and saying, we had him and Luka, and we gave up on it. Freaking 30 games into, like, games of them actually on the court together. Like, freaking 30 games in, we gave up on it. Why? Because of ego, because of not keeping everyone on the same page, because of a coach who's very tough. I understand where Rick is coming from. He says that he values Dennis Smith Jr.'s potential and ability, and it's because of that he pushes him so hard, because he feels he owes that to him, to push him so hard to try and do that, to try and reach his potential. Fine, but you at least then have to, at the very least, you have to make sure you're not pushing the kid away. Because now the relationship bottoming out like this to the point where apparently Rick is the one wanting to trade him. Okay, if that's where we're at, then Rick, you got to be the one to try and salvage this. Because the Mavericks made a huge investment for Rajon Rondo, and in part, you failed to keep that together. Now, to be fair, I didn't want to keep Rondo. And that's why Innie is going to be the one wearing the Rondo jersey for the failed bet at the end of the year. Not me. But at some point you have to acknowledge, okay, Rick and point guards don't go together. Rick and young point guards really don't go together. And at some point you can say, like, you can look at it this way. You can say, hey, we don't want you to... We're not saying like, hey, fire Rick Carlisle for this. I'm not in that camp. I'm not. I see that's coming up again. I don't view it that way. I view it as, hey, Rick, fix this shit. That's how I view it. Des Bryant, he's saying Rich, but fix this shit. Rich, that's how it feels. They need to fix the relationship, and if it's in part Carlisle that damaged it, then Carlisle's got to be the one to fix it. And I don't know that we're really getting that. So here's Carlisle the other day addressing the Dennis Smith Jr. trade rumors. This is Carlisle's quote from Bryce Patrick. He's saying, Dennis Smith is not here, but I want to let everybody know I reached out to him and his agent last night to let them know that whenever he's feeling better, he's welcome to rejoin the team at any time. We would love to have him back. In his year and a half here, he has started every game that he's been available to play, and during that period of time, he has experienced significant growth on both sides of the ball. I'm very proud of the progress he's made. That's where we're at. I don't expect him on this trip, this road trip, but again, I just think he's a part of the team, and we'd love to have him back. That's kind of a wishy-washy response from me. Like, I like that he reached out, but like to say like, oh, whenever he's feeling better, he's welcome to join the team again. Like don't treat us like we're dumb. We know. And for the whole part about like talking about, the part I like is him talking about his growth on both sides of the ball, because again, Dennis has done everything asked of him by Rick. I believe that. He's grown in all the ways he's been asked to. His numbers are a little down, and it's largely, hey, Uzi, appreciate it. Appreciate it, Innie. And the big part of that is that he's playing off the ball. The ball's not in his hand, so as a scoring point guard, and really they're just going to work him as like a guard in general because he's not going to have the ball in his hands. It's different. It's an adjustment. And his ceiling in Dallas might not be as high as his ceiling elsewhere. And Dog barking in the other room. And maybe that's what's driving this whole thing, but we'll see. DSJ can play with Luka. Trade is not inevitable. There is still a chance he stays and eats alongside Luka. Dallas will be fun to watch again. Go Mavs. Yeah, I hope that he can stay. I do, because I still don't like the state of things as currently constructed and everything. Like, some of the trade speculations you were hearing was like, if it was with Orlando, it would be for like Aaron Gordon. Okay, cool. Like, that's a good player, but I don't think it has the same ceiling, and I don't feel like it's the same window we're talking about at that point. Trying to think of some of the other ones I saw. There were 2 or 3 that were floating around, and some of them I thought were okay, but not great, and others I was just like, ugh, no thanks. Smith is out 100%, says Armin. I don't know if it's 100%, but I do think it's leaning more likely towards his time in Dallas being done. I don't know that this is something you can salvage. Smith is also acting like a spoiled child. He has a good paying contract. Hope they don't pay a salary. That's not going to happen, because if they do that, then it's going to be one of those things that players will look at this and always understand that this is a business-related thing. And so if other free agents and players around the league see the Mavericks like withholding his pay because of a business thing, they're going to not look very kindly at the Mavericks when the Mavericks are like, hey, you want to come play for us next year? They're going to look at them and be like, nah, I think not. So, can't do that. You got to speak at DDP. Hey, guys, appreciate it. Appreciate all the donations rolling in. That's pretty legit. But, yeah, I don't know what to make of the whole situation as far as how it plays out, when it plays out. I'm already putting together... I don't want to spoil it, actually. I'm already putting something together with it. And I'm already working on 2 or 3 new projects for this channel related to the Mavericks and everything like that. Some of those ideas that I said I was going away for on my trip to kind of ponder and figure out the evolution of this channel moving forward, that's the kind of stuff I was working on. So I got stuff coming. It's just going to take like a week probably to produce and start rolling out. And the retrospective series, I will have those details coming out as well in due time. I'm finalizing that with Dallas Sports Fanatic for that agreement. That's a collaborative effort that we'll be taking part in, and those videos will also come here on the channel as well. So let's see. Haven't been going that long. Voice is a little raw though. Week-long vacation apparently took that out of me. Cam Hicks with a question. Say they do trade Dennis Smith for whatever. How many years of mediocrity after that does Rick get now with Luka before he can be fired? So you're saying if they do trade Dennis, how many years would it take for Rick not getting over the hump with Luka before we move Rick out the door? It's a hypothetical, of course, but to me, I would look at it as if Rick can't get this team, and again, this is why it's a hypothetical, because we don't know what moves they're going to make in the in the meantime. Are they going to go get 1 or 2 really good free agents to pair with Luka who fit very well? Like, I don't know. Reports lately are suggesting that what Innie and I have been talking about, DeAndre Jordan not coming back next year for the Mavericks, that's starting to kind of float around out there, that the franchise is looking at it that way of like, yeah, I don't know that we're going to bring DeAndre back next year, whether it be because of his age or his declining defensive abilities or his effort or whatever. That seems to be out there now. And, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll talk about it. But if that's the case, then you got a bunch of money that you were planning to invest in DeAndre opening up, and that changes other things for you as well. So, I can't give an answer on on Rick and what I think his timeline is, because I don't know what his roster is going to look like. This is not a team that's going to do it this year, but Dallas is going to have a bunch of money. And if you're trading Dennis Smith Jr., if it does come to that, you're going to get something in return. And I don't think Dallas will make a trade just to trade. They're going to go about it and say, we're not taking 50 cents on the dollar. We want what a top 10 lottery pick from last year would go for, because you're paying for his ceiling and what you think he can be, not what he has shown in a reduced role this year. Boogie Cousins would be a very cool pickup for the Mavericks if that happens. I actually do believe they are going to take a very, very long, hard look at Cousins throughout this year and in the offseason to see if that's what they want. I would be interested in seeing Boogie, but we got to see. His debut the other night was great. 15 minutes, 14 points, 6 boards. Great stretch 5 there. His game's not built on a lot of high-flying or athleticism either, so his Achilles, to me, isn't as big of a deal as some of the other guys who have suffered Achilles injuries. So we'll see. If DSJ goes to whatever team he goes to, he's going to let the Mavs have it. Yeah, you know how every time Dennis Smith goes to Charlotte, his home state, he balls out? He did it again just earlier, like last week, I think. He always does that. I view it the same way. If Dallas does this, Dallas is going to be his twice a year, at least, revenge game. And it would not shock me in the least if he goes somewhere and then you start having these great duels between him and Luka going back and forth. And that's part of the frustration for me, too. It's all business. I don't view it as Dennis is being... I see people talking about that in the comments. I don't think he's being spoiled or childish or anything like that. I do think he's maybe listening to some bad advice from his advisors, but at the same time, it's a business-oriented thing, and you got to think about the whirlwind that's happened for him in the last year. Like I said, he was promised the keys to the kingdom last year, and then even with Luka coming in, he was the one who was signing off on like, yeah, let's get that guy. I want to play with that guy. Now, it's not like they made their decision to draft Luka because Dennis said it, but Dennis was on board midway through last year when he saw this was not going to be a great team and they were going to be in the lottery. He was already looking up highlights in the locker room after games of Dennis playing, and he was like, yup, that's what I want. Dude, Carlisle was not an average coach before Dirk. He went to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Pacers and the Pistons. You can argue and say, what's he done in the last few years? I would argue he's the only reason the Mavericks haven't been in the lottery pretty much every year since, not every year since the title, but most of the years since the title. But Carlisle's got a resume, and a pretty respectable one outside of just the one title a year. I get the frustration, but we got to put that in context. He took the Pacers in the year of the Malice in the Palace to the Eastern Conference Finals despite riddled with suspensions and all that, I believe. So, yeah, can't get on board with that. Porzingis to the Mavs, that would be interesting. That would be a move I would be very curious to see. 7'3", pretty much Dirk unicorn-like player out there in Porzingis. But the difference is, to me, Dirk was always more of a guard in a 7-footer's body, whereas Porzingis is a great shooter, but he doesn't have the same athleticism that Dirk had. Dirk has no athleticism left now, and unfortunately, it's kind of hard watching Dirk a lot of nights now these days. But it's his last run, and I'm never going to chase Dirk out of town with a pitchfork. But Porzingis, he doesn't have the athletic. If you go back and watch Dirk around 2002, 2003, Dirk had a lot more athleticism than people ever like to give him credit for. Porzingis does not have that same athletic ability, but he is still a very good and very unique player that, paired with Luka, would be very, very interesting to see. I would love to see that combination. I think we'll get a first-round pick back. Should keep DeAndre Jordan. Okay, so you're saying if they trade Dennis, they get another number 1 pick, but bring on... You're not getting Zion Williams, dude. You're not going to get him. He's going to go number 1 or 2, probably. Dallas, they're probably not going to be in the top 5 to hold on to their first-round draft pick anyway, so that's going to be gone to Atlanta as part of the Luka deal. And even if they trade Dennis and get a first-rounder back, which I don't know that they're going to, it's still a situation where it's not like the pick they get back is going to be a top 5 pick to cancel out what they lost, let alone one in either the first or second pick, or at latest 3rd pick. So you're not going to get him. And I don't want DeAndre Jordan back, honestly. They might do it. My instinct is to say no. Why isn't Wesley Matthews traded yet? Wesley Matthews has not been traded yet because his price is going to go up as teams get closer to the deadline, and you're going to have teams that are all in on trying to win now, get desperate, and try and plug some holes that they need to be a better team this year and have a chance to go on a playoff run. That's going to be your Houstons or someone of that nature. You're going to have teams like that panic and say, okay, get us someone. And so Wes's value is going to go up. You don't want to make that deal in that regard. As for Barnes, I know that the Kings have expressed a lot of interest in Barnes. Here's my thing, dude. I would do backflips. I'd break my neck on the first one, but I would do a backflip. Probably die. But if they swung a deal that sent Harrison Barnes and some kind of package around that to the Kings, and in the deal they got back Buddy Hield, I would do backflips. I love Buddy Hield. I am very high on Buddy Hield. He just had a game winner as well against the Pistons. I think it was last night or the night before. I'm not married to the idea of keeping Barnes. I would probably move on from him. He's in a really bad slump right now. And yeah, I would very much like to get Buddy Hield in here. And I don't think it'd be a one-for-one deal. There'd be something to it. There'd be some combination around to make it work. But obviously their salaries are very different. Buddy's on a rookie deal, so Harrison's got a chunk of money. But Kings have, I think, a lot of salary cap space last I checked. So we'll see. I'm going in circles kind of pontificating about this and all that. So Dennis is not pouting. He's following bad business advice. There's a difference. Stomp with that trash. I'm assuming you're talking with someone in the comments because I have said nothing of that nature. I think DSJ really wants to stay in Dallas. Again, Dennis Smith Jr. likes Dallas. He likes the team. He likes the organization. The issue that's come about all of this is that he is now, because of his advisors, doubting whether or not he really fits within this scheme that they run here in Dallas. And so his viewpoint, his perception is that if I want to reach my potential, I might need to go elsewhere. And I get it. It doesn't mean I like it, but I get it. I'm trying to find the post I had on here earlier about it. I might have just already posted it to the page and need to look there, but let me see. No, I'm not seeing it. It's on the Facebook page somewhere, but it's just talking about that. You make my day. I do? Oh, appreciate it. And if not, then I feel slightly sad now. But yeah, it is what it is for the Mavericks. They're going to have to figure it out. And I don't know. I'm frustrated with the whole situation. I'm frustrated Dennis is listening to the people he's listening to. I understand why. And especially in today's NBA, it's not about your team. It's not about, I don't mean like it's not about your team, like the guys in the locker room. I mean like your franchise. It's not about your franchise. It's not about your city even. Look at how many guys jump around the league now year to year. There's not really loyalty to teams and organizations anymore. That's why Dirk, 21 seasons, no one's ever going to do that again. Ever. And I'm not just talking for longevity, like of 21 seasons. I'm talking in general. I think the next highest tenured guy anywhere is maybe Russell Westbrook. Oh, no. Udonis Haslem, I think, is the longest active or second longest active to Dirk in his team. And then like Westbrook is third with like 11 years for OKC, something like that. So, yeah, you can't base it on that. You're never going to see that. Guys bounce around year to year. They don't take 4 or 5 year deals a lot anymore. They take 2 or 1 year deals. It'll be like a 2-year deal with a player option or a 3-year deal. Like they bounce around a lot. Took a few years for Buddy Hield to develop too. He also had to switch teams to tap into his true potential. I don't know if I agree with that last part because he was traded halfway into his rookie year for DeMarcus Cousins. He was part of that swap. So I don't know that you can say like it took a trade for him to tap into his potential. I think if he had stayed in New Orleans, he could have found that potential as well. he just needed time to develop. But Buddy Hield, man, he came in at OU, and obviously that's how I know him better. But he came in at OU as nothing but a hustle and defense guy. And over 4 years, he built himself into one of the best players in the country. Like an AP Player of the Year caliber player. And took OU all the way. Like, OU doesn't play basketball most years, it feels like. They're not relevant. They're not a basketball school. He got them to #1 in the country, something that Trae Young wasn't able to do, something Blake Griffin wasn't able to do. He made them relevant in that season, and he got them all the way to the Final Four, where, ironically, Jalen Brunson's Villanova team waxed them. But all the same, I love Buddy Hield. Dude is phenomenal work ethic, and the growth and development he's shown. I would be thrilled to have Buddy Hield in Dallas. I would prefer Bamba-type defensive center, to be clear, but who's their next free agency? We'll talk free agent centers and all that. There's a lot to consider there. I'm interested in Vucevic and all that as well. It's all about having the opportunity to develop. Yep. Wouldn't mind getting DeAndre Jordan, Matthews, and Barnes off the books, but Matthews is expiring as one of the biggest assets at the moment. Barnes will be a pain to trade away because he's got a player option for next year, which he's going to clearly opt into because it pays him like 26 or 27 million, and so on and so forth. Cuban needs to get older players to retire a little earlier, in my opinion. It's hard to tell a dude to retire. You're not going to be able to push a guy into retirement. You can push him off your team, can't push him into retirement. Bobby R, what's good? Okay, trades are trades, and they will happen, but I need to say I really hate how Rick is doing the rotations with the team. Even Luka is playing weird minutes. P.S. for me personally, DeAndre Jordan looks trash. I agree with especially the part talking about rotations and them being wonky. During the season, you experiment a lot more with your lineups and things, and yeah, he's definitely had stretches where I've been like, bro, what are you doing? It is frustrating, I understand. But I also view it as you got to just kind of experiment through the early part of the season, because if your team does make playoffs, that's where it can really pay off, because you find something that works or you develop something until it works and it pays off. It's just something that they need to adjust and figure out. He's definitely made moves and decisions with rotations and things like that, or taking Luka out for way too long of a stretch, I feel, when Luka's hot. And it sucks. It's frustrating. I understand that, absolutely. You just have to kind of try and work around it and see what it develops to. Again, I don't know how long of a leash I give Carlisle. I don't fault Carlisle for literally any season between the title and now. I don't. I would say this now is the first year that I am officially saying, okay, Carlisle, you're not on a hot seat, but now I'm really paying attention, because throughout a lot of the last few years, Carlisle's had trash to work with, man. A couple of those teams that we made the playoffs with had no business being in the playoffs. A couple of those years that we were in the fight for the playoffs, we had no business being in that position. And Carlisle made, what's that expression? Chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what. That's what Carlisle was doing for a while. So I respect the hell out of him for that. But now, if we have shifted the dynamic as it relates to Dennis Smith Jr. saying, okay, forget patience, forget long-term proper team building. We are going all in right now. We think as of next year we can be a legit contender. If that's the discussion and it screws over Dennis Smith Jr., fine, but it goes both ways, Carlisle. That means the pressure is also on you to deliver. So in that light, if that's how we're going to do it, we have to see what the team shakes out to, but he might have a leash of 2 years or less. If he's not able to get the team into the second round and competitive fighting for a Western Conference Finals berth in 2 to 3 years, he might be in that position. But it's all hypothetical. So what I'm saying right now, that's the feeling and that's the sentiment, but you got to see where you are when you get there. The team could be in a totally different place. There could be injuries or things like that that make you kind of say, you can't really put that on the coach. It is what it is. I feel like Rick doesn't have a lot of love in him. He seems like a harsh person. Loving who? Dennis Smith Jr.? I think Rick is a very prickly person, prickly like a cactus. And as I said, he's tough on young players. He's even tougher on point guard. So a young point guard is like a nightmare coming into Rick Carlisle's system, let alone a raw point guard who needs time to develop and to eventually reach a ceiling. That's just stuff that Rick doesn't feel like he's ever had time for. And so I think it's a bad combination all the way around. Either Carlisle needs to grow and learn how to adapt and manage the situation like Greg Popovich was able to do all the way until the end of the Kawhi Leonard saga. Throughout his career, he had been able to do that. Rick either needs to figure that out and be able to fix this shit, or we need to reevaluate what kind of players we're going to draft and bring in for him, because that becomes a very serious discussion. Now, I know people love Jalen Brunson. I love Brunson as a role player on this team. I don't really see him as a starter, but I think Brunson has a high basketball IQ, and he can make some big shots. I could even see, if given a lot more opportunity, I could see him being a guy that averages something like 12 points, 4 assists. But I don't think Brunson has near the ceiling some other people think he has. If you were to, drag me over the coals or whatever like that and say I got to pick right now between who I would rather have as a prospect, Smith Jr. or Brunson, it's not even a question. It's Smith Jr. But I would have a little more patience than the Mavericks are expressing right now. Let me see here. Madhaz, what's good? When managing creatives, you let them run operations by themselves, but when your creative lacks experience, trust is a gamble. Every business owner tackled this issue at some time. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Why do the Mavericks do this crazy stuff with their players every 3 years? I'm getting tired of a revolving door in Dallas. We need to build for the future. Yeah, it's a fair point. We haven't had a lot of stability as far as a foundation is concerned. Even Barnes and Wes Matthews, this is what their third year here? Yeah, I want to say third year here in Dallas. So, yeah, that's kind of just the reality of the situation. They have not been good about it, and that's why you're like, hey, you had 2 years where you had to tank to get what you needed. Shouldn't we at least come out of that with 2 players? Now you're kicking one of those players to the door because he's not as, final product ready as the other? That's stupid. Best for DSJ and Matthews, Knicks for Frank, Tim Hardaway Jr., and unprotected first for eating 3 years of Hardaway Jr.'s contract to free up their KD Hunt in the summer. That'd be interesting. I'd be very curious to see about that, because Hardaway Jr. is a laughable contract, but I do think he would be a solid player to add to the team, especially if you are accepting that as a 3-year thing. You're gonna have to invest in him, because you're not going to be flipping him super quick. Worst thing about this Dallas season is that they, with Luka, Barnes, Jordan, Matthews, Brunson, Kleba, who are decent players, are an absolute joke on the road. The bench has suffered greatly without JJ Barea on this 3-game skid. I think that can't be understated enough. That's why I wanted Dennis Smith to roll more and lead that second unit, and that's just not been what we've gotten. So, I don't know, man. We'll see how that develops out. Try imagining Popovich coaching Luka. That would be good. Now, defensively, he'd have to make up for Luka, but yeah, offensively, Popovich would be able to do a lot with Luka. But, Luka's doing his thing as is until his his ejection last night in the Pacers game. Dallas lost by 12. Luka gets a tech right before half for arguing a non-call on a half-court heave, which seemed a little weird. And then he gets a tech for basically punting the ball after a Mavericks timeout into the crowd. It didn't look like he was just blasting it. It looked like he was just kind of trying to bop it up in the air, and it just kind of careened off to the side. And NBA rule says if a player kicks a ball into the stands, that's got to be a technical. So because Luka had already gotten himself a stupid technical in the game, he earned his first career ejection. So Luka was in good spirits after it. He laughed on the way going to the locker room, and he just joked that he needed to practice his soccer juggling skills. I thought that was kind of funny, even though it sucked to lose him for the game, and it hurt the team badly in that case. But it is what it is, man. This doesn't feel like the year, and I've been trying to say all year, I don't think this is a playoff team yet. I think this is just a team that's at least in the running for the playoffs until the final month of the season. Let me see. When was the last time a player really, really wanted to play in Orlando? I mean, the Magic have to feel... Yeah. I haven't been watching college ball. Some dogs out there. I think it's part of a conversation. Somebody needs to go in the front office or scouting and make this team better. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Luka is horrible at Indy in a game on defense, my God. It wasn't his best showing. Luka was having a rough game. Now, his passing was phenomenal in that game. Some of those assists he was getting were very nice. That's the thing about Luka I love. He never has a truly awful game. It's only the fourth time this year he's been held to single digits. He had like 8 points on something like 3 of 14 shooting. Missed 2 free throws out of 4 and was like 0 of 5 on threes or something. But he never feels like he's ineffective in a game. He's at least getting assists at a good clip, which means he's always involved and he's always got some kind of positive impact for the team. Can you give me a realistic trade for Dennis Smith Jr. or Harrison Barnes, says One Sin City 1. The thing is, for Dennis, it's hard to project his situation because Dallas has no leverage and Dallas refuses to give him up for 50 cents on the dollar. So it's hard to put forth a really clear trade offer for him. I can start working to put that together for Barnes and just kind of monitor the Dennis situation. And once a couple more hypotheticals emerge that seem plausible, I can give you the pros and cons of that and what I think of that. Luka needs help. That's a fact. Yeah, and no one's disputing it. Luka needs help. And that's the thing. This is why we talk about patience, right? Luka, there's a reason Dallas was in the lottery last year. There's a reason why Dallas was in the lottery this year when they drafted Luka. That doesn't automatically mean, like, if you were in the lottery, if you were in the top 3 picking, the odds of you now hitting the ground running and being a playoff team, even with Luka, not great. The fact that they're even this close is a little surprising to me in a good way. So patience is what I preach. I always said year 2 and 3 of Luka was when I expected this big leap. Now, part of that was I was thinking it would be for him. He's obviously done that way faster than I thought he would. But beyond that, I also looked at it from the standpoint of the team as a whole. And again, because he's come in so good and so impactful immediately, I think it shaved maybe a year and a half off of how long that rebuilding process would take. But, you know, there is other unintended consequences and fallout surrounding that, not the least of which is Dennis Smith Jr. Let's see here. Barnes can't pass the ball. That's a problem. All right, so guys, I got time for 3 more quick questions, and I got to wrap this up. Again, I've got other stuff. I'm going to just plug this stuff real quick. I've got other stuff I'm working on as well for the channel, stuff I'm going to do moving forward. I'm going to try and give you guys a lot more content and a new kind of side of things, like not just my own, as I smack the mic, not just my own kind of personality and everything like that, but some more creative pieces of content for you guys as well, because I feel like I can sit down and I can do straight sports talk with most anybody on YouTube, but I feel like there's things that I can do that a lot of other guys either don't do or can't do, and I'm trying to find that next way to help grow the channel other than you guys and your amazing support and everything that you give us. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe, ring the notification bell. We're going to get into the flow of a schedule here as well, where we are rolling out new content I mean, I'm still going to do the straight sports talk shows like this, so I'm still going to have my Mavs Fastbreak on Sundays and a weekly Cowboys show as well. But there's going to be other new creative content I roll out as well, and that's going to drop. I'm going to try and stagger it where you still get an extra new video every week. And then I'm also going to be doing these retrospectives. So there's just going to be a lot coming out. I'm still going to have my Mavs and Cowboy articles for Dallas Sports Fanatic as well. You can also find more of my content as it relates to pop culture stuff as well at thedallasprospect.com. Every now and then some pop culture stuff will jump on here as well, whether it's like a film analysis or something, but it's never going to take away from the work I do on the sports side of things. Basically what I'm saying is I'm going all in and I'm going to work my damn ass off to make this the best channel and the best content that I can give you guys, because it's what I want. I think it's what you want. And hey, you don't hold back, man. You don't hold back if you're going to try and do something. If you're going to do it well, you don't hold back. So I'm going to give everything I got to this, because
when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, man. Let's see here. See if any questions rolled through. I'll tell you one weird anomaly I noticed from the game the other night. Maxey played 23 minutes and had 0 rebounds. That's not good, especially in a starting capacity. Why do you think Cousins would be a good fit in Dallas? Aren't you worried about his attitude? Thank you, Innie, for the donation. Yes, I do. I do have concerns about his attitude. It's historically why I've always tapped the brakes on bringing him in to Dallas. But it's more I worry about how he and Carlisle would get along. And if Dallas were to get Boogie and Carlisle burn that bridge out, then officially I don't know that I'm public enemy number 1 for Carlisle, but at the very least I'm in that camp of saying, okay, I think you're the problem at this point. You're a great coach, but you are killing these crucial relationships with these big investments, whether it be draft picks or free agents or whatever that we're giving you. And that is not okay. But for Boogie, his skill set, I think, is great. It cannot be undersold enough. Even coming off his Achilles, I think for his style of play, it won't have a huge impact on him. And so I view it as there is concern there. But I think with Luka, and as long as you can build a solid team around him, I think, and if the Warriors win it again this year, he'll have finally gotten the title, and so that'll take some of that pressure and therefore kind of aggression maybe out of him in terms of, you know, how controlling and how hard he pushes for stuff. But he didn't have a problem at all in New Orleans. I tend to think that Dallas could have something like that as well, especially with how veteran-laden the team usually is. So I think Boogie would be good. His fit, it would change how Dallas does some things, obviously, but I think a player like that, you make the exception and you alter things to his ability and to his setup. Boogie, assuming he looks like Boogie still, with Doncic is really, really tantalizing. Dennis plans to return on Tuesday per Tim McMahon. Okay, there you go. So Dennis will return, like I said. Nothing's going to happen as long as he's staying away because neither party has leverage in that situation, so it's going to force the issue, and we'll see where they go with it. Let's see. I'm trying to skim real quick for another quick question. Isaiah Hunt, Tim McMahon report. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here you go. Cam Hicks. Any chance we get Chris Middleton next year? I believe he's an unrestricted free agent. I think he's a restricted free agent, actually. But his situation in Milwaukee has been very back and forth this year. I think there is a real chance he could come available. And if that's the case, that's probably like the very top of my list, my want list. And that's a great fit in terms of his ability as far as his fit and everything like that within Dallas. I think that would be a near perfect marriage in that case. And final question. I'm just doing a quick skim here. It's probably already in here. Huh, I actually don't see the question. Nope. Nope. All right. So that's going to wrap up this show for me, guys. Again, if you haven't already, take a moment to like the video. Subscribe, all that. Check us out on Facebook. You can find me personally on Twitter. It helps if I actually throw the graphic up there. DDP_journalist or at Dallas Prospect for the official Dallas Prospect account. Beyond that, man, all the same jazz. Got us on Patreon, got us on PayPal.me. There's always Super Chat, like several of you have been just lovely today, hitting that up. So that's greatly appreciated as well. But we're gonna keep working, man. I have got a lot coming down the pike for you guys. Keep an eye out. We're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna do it right in 2019. So until next time, guys, that's my time. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.
Mic check 212, bitch.